Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
He may go all the way to the 20 down the right side, and it's Randall Cobb to the 5, to the end zone, to the touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Green and Golden Boys Packers podcast, a podcast for fans who are ready to anoint Jordan Love as the heir apparent to Aaron Rodgers. Charles, are you one of those?
Let's go!
Obviously, we're here today to talk about the Packers-Chiefs game. Not a great game from an offensive perspective, but I think a lot of things. I took a lot of positives away from this game. You know, obviously, Packers lose 13-7. But had an outstanding game defensively. Jordan had some good throws and some bad throws and, some poor decision making. But I think all things considered, probably what we expected from him in his first start in the NFL.
Yeah, I think this game was full of, from the Jordan Love perspective, from the total offense perspective, from the defensive perspective, it was like this happened, but situation. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
The offense was a bit stagnant at times, but it was Jordan Love's first game. The defense had a fantastic game, all things considered, but 3 or 4 of our defensive starters weren't even in the game. So that could even get better. We lost by 6, but special teams essentially cost us 12 points. I mean, there are so many on the bright side, or so many ways you can look positively on that game, and no one will, and no one has. Reading people's reaction about never take Aaron for granted, and stuff like that. That's kind of what's running the internet, because obviously we only put up 7 points, but I mean, yeah, to your point, there's a lot of positives you could take out of this game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I've seen a lot of reactions from like the national pundits that are talking about Jordan Love was not very good in his first start, and then I see other guys that are like, hey, he was fine. It was they dialed up a lot of pressure and it got to him, which is what you do to essentially a rookie quarterback. I mean, this was at Arrowhead Stadium, okay, notoriously one of the loudest, if not the loudest, outdoor stadium in the league. A really difficult place to play. Barely any Packers fans there, it looked like. You're talking about the defending AFC champions from the last 2 years, Patrick Mahomes, who by all accounts is going to be the next best quarterback for the next 10 or 15 years. I mean, this is a hell of a task for him to come in here and try to play well. Again, I think he did fine. I think our offensive line was atrocious yesterday. I don't know what happened, but they could not stop any of the blitzes happening. It seems like at some point you just got to try to play with 2 tight ends in the game as extra linemen and try to have something happen with a 3-step and pass. I mean,
you just nailed it right there. I mean, the number of times that I saw Jordan Love taking 8 to 10 steps back on these plays. I mean, LaFleur took ownership on that after the game. I'm sure you saw his press conference, but I 100% put, not 100%, I 60% put that on him. I mean, being a young quarterback, Jordan's not good enough to check out of some things and get the right call in. There should have been some quick hitting slants. There should have been 2 to 3 step drops, to your point, to counter some of those blitzes that we saw.
Yeah, for sure. And, I think Matt LaFleur learned as much last night as Jordan Love did. He can't call the same game for Jordan Love that he would with Aaron Rodgers. Not that he did, but all of it, I mean, the ground game was working. Those guys, A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, are averaging 5 yards a carry, and all of a sudden, 12 straight passes or whatever it was at one point. And I understand you want to get Jordan Love into a rhythm, but I don't understand, it wasn't a pass-friendly night, with everything that the Chiefs were doing defensively.
Yeah.
So I think the play calling again from LaFleur is a little bit, you just kind of shake your head a little bit.
Yeah, a couple of things that stand out to me on that end. Again, I already said what I thought on the blitzes. I feel like the ball should have been leaving Jordan's hand a little bit sooner, and it did on some plays. And I'll talk about the third and fourth quarter specifically in a little bit here. But overall, to see 20 combined carries between two guys that just kicked butt last week and were kicking butt again last night, right. I would have expected to see more. And then specifically to see Aaron Jones not catch a ball when 2 years ago he was the one who torched Kansas City. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers was throwing to him. But I am surprised to see that we didn't get Aaron Jones more involved in the passing game earlier than what we did. That being said, the Chiefs did exactly what they had to do to put this young quarterback on ice right away. A 3-and-out, and then a long drive to score a touchdown. You know what I mean? Like, Jordan didn't get back on the field until late in the first quarter, and by then, he kind of... Not by then. I should just say that's a hard way to start a game, right? There's no rhythm there. So he didn't really get his first real quarter of play until the second quarter of that game.
Yep, and then, but at the same time, that was their only touchdown of the game. Their only touchdown drive of the entire game. Our defense played really well. And at one point, I think Jordan Love was 10 for 10 passing for one stretch, and he was starting to get into a little bit of a rhythm. But, one thing happened here or there. He ended up throwing the pick, which was probably... it's
not a terrible throw.
Not a terrible throw, but not a terrible decision. But, the throw, it was basically kind of a 50-50 ball to Devontae, and it's like, it just didn't... He couldn't come up with it, unfortunately. But, it wasn't a great throw. Not an awful throw, but, I think, one he's going to want back.
But before we go to Jordan Love and specifically have some thoughts on him in the second half, let's talk about this defense a little bit more. I think Kansas City, was held. I can't find it right now, but it was held to the fewest yards in a game in I want to say all time. That can't be true under Mahomes, but it might be. They only put up one touchdown, and then obviously Jair Alexander wasn't playing yesterday. For the casual viewer, if you didn't catch this, Eric Stokes injured his knee in warmups. Our two top corners didn't play in that game yesterday. That signing of Rashawn Douglas might end up being the best signing for Goody all year. Obviously he had the game-winning pick against Arizona, and then for him to be able to step up and play in this game, and obviously there were huge shout out to our linebackers, Campbell specifically. There's a lot of great things on that defense, but to essentially shut down this team with no starting quarterbacks. Kevin King looked good out there.
I was just going to bring up Kevin King.
Dropped a would-be pick that could have kept three points off the board at the end of that half, which would have been nice. But the defense, despite the shortcomings of the offense in the first and second quarter specifically, and then, I saw improvements in the third quarter. Our defense, that was a legitimate game down to that last 3rd and 10 that Kansas City was able to convert on, unfortunately, to ice the game at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. If we stop them there, Jordan Love's got 2 minutes to potentially have a game-winning touchdown. Now, how fun would that have been?
That would have been amazing, and that was a point I was just about to make too. Is like, even with all the adversity, even with our special teams being atrocious, even with Jordan Love not playing very well in his first start, the Packers were in this game with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You've got Rashawn Gary barreling down on Mahomes, dives to take him down, grabs a hold of his jersey as Mahomes releases the ball, and first down, ices the game.
And I don't know who that corner was, but that corner slipped on that play, so that's part of the reason why he was open on that comeback. But yeah,
Yep. It was disappointing, but I think, again, there are a lot of positives to take away.
And that whole half, by the way, second quarter even, I think it was. Kenny Clark was out of that game for majority of it. He hurt himself on that shoestring tackle that he had there. So yeah, I know there's been a lot of talk about how Kansas City has struggled offensively, but even that being said, they're a potentially explosive offense, and the Packers, I think, shut them down even more than what we've seen these last few weeks. And that was a very winnable game, and this would be the only time that I'm going to talk about Aaron Rodgers specific to this game That would have been a double-digit win. If Aaron would have been playing, that's fine. I'm not going to dwell on that. We're not going to talk too much COVID talk today. But, I mean, hell of a job for the defense.
I want to talk about one player in particular, and that's Rashawn Gary quickly. Because the guy is on pace for, I think, 10 sacks this season. Double-digit sacks. And I think, the last couple of years, we've been waiting for his impact to be felt, maybe more so on the stat sheet, because I think you can argue that he's always making an impact, and he's rushing the quarterback, or I should say, hurrying the quarterback almost every play. So he's making an impact out there. He's hitting the quarterback, but he's finally starting to show up on the stat sheet a little bit more, which is good to see. And I'm excited to see what this guy's going to do the rest of the season.
Well, and honestly, if Zadaria comes back, we might see an increase in sacks per game, just because now you have more guys coming out that you have to account for coming at the quarterback. So,
oh yeah, and that would be ideal. We'll see if we get him back. So my next point is about Zadaria Smith. So he's tweeting out these sort of cryptic images on Twitter, talking about, or I should say, at least alluding to coming back. I mean, do we see him before the season's over in a Packers uniform?
I want to say yes. I mean, why else is he in Green Bay? Why else is he saying those cryptic things? Aaron Rodgers in the first Pat McAfee interview last week talked about potential of Jair coming back as well. He kind of let it slip that there was some good news there. At least that's what fans are reading into. So yeah, I mean, if Za'Darius is in Green Bay and he's tweeting, if we have our team together, I mean, we'll talk about the first seed, second seed here in a little bit, but like, regardless of even if we're a freaking wild card team this year, we're a dangerous team if all of our guys are healthy. And you can say that about most teams, but it feels like we're already winning games when we're missing a lot of players. Obviously not when you're missing your star MVP quarterback, but we're winning a lot of games. Arizona, I mean, we didn't do a review game episode of that game, but holy shit, what a game that was. It just kind of feels like this could be a magical year if no one tests positive for COVID and if everyone gets off that injured list.
Yep, and I'm not going to even deal with is this a special team? Is this a team of destiny? I feel like we've gone there too often before and have just come up on the disappointed end. So I'm not going to go there. But this team is talented for sure. And half the season's over, and they're number 2 or number 3 in the NFC right now.
I think technically number 2
after Arizona and LA. I think technically did LA end up winning or losing?
LA lost last night. So
so I think that would put the Packers in number 2 behind Arizona.
So that was going to be my kind of my last point of on the bright side, if you will. And we do need to talk special teams here in a moment, because that's the one part of this that does not have a bright side. But before we dive into the negative, just about everything went well for us yesterday, considering that Aaron Rodgers was not available. First, it was an AFC team that Aaron Rodgers couldn't play against. An AFC team, if we lose that game, is not as bad for us in a tie-breaking situation, right? We don't want to lose to an NFC team or obviously a game within our division. So that's great that we had Aaron missing this game specifically. And then every team except for the Arizona Cardinals, who won, by the way, without Kyler Murray, or Hopkins, which is amazing. But every team that we wanted to, if you're watching for that number 1 seed, every team lost last night that we needed to. Tampa Bay lost, the Rams lost, and the Cowboys got routed by Denver at home. I think 30-0. So all the other 7-2 or 8-2 teams, whatever it was, I guess that'd be 7-2. They all lost except for Arizona. So as long as we can kind of figure out a way to right this ship once Aaron comes back, we have the head-to-head with Arizona, so we still are very much in play, even though we have a tough schedule ahead of us, in play for that number 1 seed overall if we keep this thing going.
Yep, I agree. And, we've got the tiebreaker, so if it comes down to that, we'd be ahead of Arizona. But is there anything else you want to talk about in particular regarding this game?
Special teams, baby.
Oh, yes.